When it comes to horror franchises, it's basically a given that sequels, prequels, and spin-offs will largely just offer more of the same. Yet, the following horror movies decided to take a sharp left turn and actually refused to give fans what they paid their ticket price to see, in turn leaving them hugely divided, if not straight up outraged. With that in mind then, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are horror movies which refuse to give fans what they came for. A decisive winner, Freddy vs. Jason. Prior to its release, 2003's Freddy vs. Jason was marketed as a historic, long-awaited cinematic showdown between two of the most iconic slasher movie villains of all time, with the implication being that one would decisively defeat the other. After all, as was eventually learned with Godzilla vs. Kong, audiences don't want a cop-out draw. But of course, anyone with any awareness of how movie studios usually work knew there wasn't much chance that New Line Cinema would let either Freddy or Jason unambiguously go down for the count. And so, Freddy vs. Jason ends with Freddy being decapitated by human protagonist Laurie, while Jason falls off the dock, both seemingly dead. Yet, the final scene takes place the next morning, with Jason emerging from the water, brandishing both his machete and Freddy's decapitated head, before Freddy then cheekily winks at the camera and laughs. The end. Now, while Jason was certainly in better shape when the end credits rolled, New Line quite predictably refused to give the concrete W to either character, ensuring that the ending felt like an undeniable, if unsurprising, cop-out. Another found footage movie, Blair Witch 2: Book of Shadows. The Blair Witch Project was, of course, an absolute pop culture phenomenon upon release, and therefore a colossal financial success which ensured a sequel would quickly be on the way. All Blair Witch 2 really had to do was give audiences more of the same. Another found footage movie in a creepy location, and it probably would have been a sizable hit in its own right. But instead, the producers opted to take the series in a bold and frankly kinda stupid new direction, by ditching the innovative found footage gimmick and styling Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2 as a conventional narrative film. As such, one of the most defining aspects of the original, and one which massively heightened its sense of perceived realism, was out the window right away. Combine that with the sequel's generally trash script and rough execution, and it's little surprise that it grossed just a fraction of the original, while also receiving 5 Razzie nominations.
Film and TV is cool, but you know what else is cool? Protecting your privacy online. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and get up to 76% off a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus 3 months free if you sign up today. I'd make that deal. Damn good deal.
Doug Bradley as Pinhead, Hellraiser Revelations. Bradley played Pinhead in the first 8 Hellraiser movies, but then opted not to return for 2011's Hellraiser Revelations due to the project's low budget and rushed production. See, when I say low budget, I really mean it here, because with a mere $300,000 price tag, Revelations was hastily developed by the Weinstein Company to prevent them from losing the rights to Hellraiser, and by God, does it show. Even typically open-minded and forgiving Hellraiser fans couldn't help but cringe at the painfully wonky production values and, worst of all, Bradley being replaced in the Pinhead role by Stephen Smith Collins. Unaided by the paltry budget, Collins' turn as Pinhead couldn't hold a candle to Bradley's, ensuring that this appalling sequel lacked even the basic fleeting thrill of seeing a legendary actor reprising the role he was seemingly born to play. Bradley was then replaced by Paul T. Taylor on the next sequel, Hellraiser Judgment, before the bigger budget recent reboot swapped him out again for Jamie Clayton, with far more satisfying results. An army of Alice's, Resident Evil Afterlife. The third Resident Evil film, while hardly great on its own terms, at least ended with one hell of an insane, even tantalizing hook for the inevitable 4th movie. In the final scene, hero Alice reveals that she and an army of her own clones are preparing to launch an assault against the villainous Albert Wesker, which set the stage nicely for the next movie, Resident Evil Afterlife. But as became tradition for this headache-inducing franchise, Afterlife totally and utterly screwed the pooch where that enticingly deranged sequel hook was concerned, by burning through it in record time like it meant nothing in the prologue of the next movie. And though Afterlife does begin with the awesomely surreal sight of Alice and her clones attacking the Umbrella HQ, the opening set piece ends with Wesker destroying the facility and in turn killing all of the Alice clones, leaving only the original alive. In its first 15 minutes, Afterlife raced through an idea that could have sustained an entire movie, with Alice and her squad of clones kicking ass and taking names, but instead, perhaps for budgetary reasons or because Paul W. Anderson was back as director, it got shaken off like a bad habit. A direct prequel to Alien, Prometheus. The marketing for Prometheus was frankly kinda genius. It did such a fantastic job of selling the sci-fi horror film as a direct prequel to Alien, exploiting familiar imagery to suggest that the events of the movie would lead directly into the happenings of that first Alien movie. And indeed, that was the intent of the original script. But once Damon Lindelof came aboard, the movie was rewritten to distance itself from the events of Ridley Scott's original Alien movie. And so, while fans expected Prometheus to take place on or around the moon from Alien, that being LV-426, it was actually set on another moon entirely, that being LV-223. This effectively allowed Lindelof and Ridley Scott to hint at how the Xenomorphs probably wound up on LV-426, yet without saying so for absolute certain. And many fans understandably saw this approach as kinda cowardly, to shift Prometheus' action over to another similar-looking moon where a series of suspiciously familiar events also took place, and yet insisting that they aren't the exact events that set up Alien. Michael Myers' Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. Halloween 3: Season of the Witch was nothing if not an incredibly bold swing from franchise creators John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. They felt that Halloween would be more effective as an anthology series after the second movie, with each sequel focusing on a new story and set of characters. And so Halloween 3 was an entirely standalone horror yarn that didn't feature the one thing that indisputably made the first two movies huge box office hits, that of course being Michael freaking Myers. Indeed, the shape was nowhere to be seen at all in Season of the Witch, which instead revolved around a nefarious corporation attempting to revive witchcraft through the use of cursed Halloween masks. Now, between you and me, Halloween 3 absolutely rules. But admittedly, when your average punter saw the words Halloween 3 on the cinema marquee on a Friday night, they sure as hell expected to see Michael Myers cutting people up. It was definitely a brave call on the part of Carpenter and Hill, even if they perhaps didn't fully appreciate Michael Myers' elemental appeal to audiences. David is the last superhuman standing, Glass. After M. Night Shyamalan's Split ended with the genuinely shocking twist that it was a secret sequel to his 2000 film Unbreakable the whole time, the stage was seemingly set for a third movie which persuasively tied everything together. And the marketing for Glass did a fine enough job of hyping up an epic finale in which superhuman vigilante David Dunn would take on both Mr. Glass and the Horde, yet the outcome wasn't really what anyone expected or even wanted. See, Shyamalan, seemingly on purpose, delivered an anti-superhero movie. The big battle between Dunn and the Horde is a clumsy fight in the drabbest of locations, a literal parking lot, and worse still, the movie ends with all three superpowered characters dead and gone. Though it was expected that Mr. Glass and the Horde would probably die, fans were left totally bemused that Dunn died such a bafflingly anticlimactic, unceremonious death, being drowned in a puddle by some anonymous guy. Even accepting Dunn's noted fear of water, it was still a pathetic, depressing end for the film's overarching hero, ensuring that most everyone was left feeling deflated and completely unsatisfied by a movie they might have been waiting decades to see.